The arrival of Yoimiya has definitely caused a lot of discussions within the player base, and there's a few important things that need to be addressed in this video. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by Castlecraft World War, a new real-time strategy mobile game. Build your armies with a ton of different commanders and units to take advantage of their unique mechanisms and beat your opponents by countering their tactics. You can also scout the enemy's base, which lets you come up with new and creative strategies on the go, like expanding your base and adding advantageous unit cards. The meta is constantly changing here, so you can join a guild to become better together. Not to mention winning battles and missions gets you extra rewards each season. There's also special gifts you can get by pre-registering to the game, which includes premium currency you don't want to miss out on. And you can pre-register to the game right now by clicking on the link below the video, and by doing so, you'll be supporting the channel and its future videos, so make sure to check out Castlecraft today. It's probably safe to say Yoimiya has had one of the most confusing receptions from players when we talk about the new 5-star releases. On one hand, you have the classical excuse or banners placed right before the new upcoming characters, which in this case, one of them is going to be the Electro Archon herself, but to make things even worse, right behind her was one of the most anticipated characters in Genshin's history. And you can easily observe this phenomenon using simple Google Trends analysis, where the peak popularity is usually when the character gets released, and you can see for yourself that Yoimiya's relevance barely peaked when Ayaka stopped trending, and meeting at this crossover point really just shows how much people actually care about new releases. Now, combine this with the ongoing discussions about her power level, and you've got yourself a strange case of gacha gaming in general. Do players really think with their hearts, or is it the strength of the character that dictates their popularity? Well, we're here to find out, and hopefully understand just what exactly happened here. Now, first of all, we already have a couple of similar cases, the first one being Child's Banner in 1.1, which had some issues with generating hype and revenue. Even though he was released together with Diona on the same banner, there was just something that didn't make the big bucks for miHoYo. When you listen to other players, a common complaint was his weird playstyle, since the bow acted more like a flavorful display, just like it is right now with Yoimiya's charge shot, and the real damage came from his melee stance that had a not so intuitive cooldown mechanism, where you end up waiting for his Hydroblade mode to come back and essentially rendering him useless in combat, at least in terms of optimal damage performance. However, as months would pass, more and more players would learn how to mitigate that annoying elemental skill cooldown, so more and more team comms would start to surface, and before you even know it, he is now used in one of the most powerful and popular team combinations for the Spiral Abyss. Obviously, you could argue Kazuha's arrival made this possible, but even before the Samurai Boy, people were using Sucrose and even Venti variations, and it was still godlike vape damage Xiangling and Shile would produce. And when it comes to being popular, he was actually voted as #1 male character in one of the premier Japan's magazines, and there are speculations about Japanese player base favoring style and design over power level. And then there's Albedo, who was caught up in the middle of the whole fiasco with Zhongli, and the general opinion about Geo wasn't so great, so miHoYo, in their infinite wisdom, decided to not only pump the stats and kit of the tall drink of water that is Zhongli, but also make the element itself more powerful. The only problem with this was that it all happened after Albedo's banner ended, which resulted in a huge decline in sales. But we can all agree he's definitely not underwhelming, and in fact, building him is so easy. All you really need are those defense artifacts combined with the Harbinger of Dawn, and you're good to go. Point is, Yoimiya herself might not be at the peak of popularity as someone like Ayaka, but given enough time, it might change the perspective about her. Not to mention, at the time of making this video, it's only been like a week since she got released. But if we need to talk about her capabilities, then this next part is all about it. When you look at the raw power Yoimiya is able to output, it's pretty amazing. Obviously, if you have the access to Verdes and Venrier's set, you'll want to use it and boost her damage even more, not to mention any other support that leaves lingering talents such as Beidou and Xingqiu's bursts, which, unsurprisingly, is what every main damage dealer wants to have more of. But the thing that seems to be getting in her way is the internal cooldown, which has been explained before, but it's basically there to prevent you from triggering too many elemental reactions. For example, if Yoimiya shoots out 5 pyro-infused arrows, not all of these shots become melted, vaporized, or overloaded, provided the enemy has the status to trigger the reaction. So what gives? Well, it's not clear as of now, because these limitations could certainly be less severe for her, but it's possible she could have been designed with future characters in mind, who might enhance her in some other ways, For example, giving her a boosted attack to land even more shots, which could probably be insanely powerful if you could get an amplifying reaction on each of them. And currently, because her charged shot is nothing more than just for some cute fireworks display, you cannot even reliably trigger the reactions because of how much pyro application she does, unlike Hu Tao's charge attacks, where she can pretty much score vaporized hits with Xingqiu's burst, and it's part of a big reason why she's sitting at the top of Spiral Abyss teams. But it's not easy to just wave your buffing wand and have this resolved short term, since we can already see the power creep history that was left behind the Geo Archon and Ganyu, who are now gold standards when it comes to evaluating damage and support. If you, let's say for example, make an argument that Yoimiya is actually good with overloads and they need to be adjusted, we're talking about impacting not just her but the rest of the pyro and electro characters who have this reaction in common. The other solution would be to just amp up the damage multipliers, especially on the burst, which, let's be honest, should really deal more damage given someone like Child's burst, which has 3 times a bigger number, and they kind of share a similar playstyle either way. Speaking about playstyles, Yoimiya's design is as straightforward as they come. There's really no gimmick she possesses, unlike Eula, who builds up her combo meter and delivers massive burst damage, or Kazuha, who's all about vertical mobility and boosting team's elemental damage. Even Ayaka's playstyle is closely tied together to her dash, which forces her into this whack-a-mole playstyle that's funny to observe. So this straight arrow shooter playstyle could potentially be appreciated by people who only like a simple design, which is all about keeping your distance between the enemy, dodging and shooting them. So could this have impacted her reception? An easy to understand playstyle with very clear and visible damage results that you cannot hide behind combo mirrors or swirls, so getting a first impression about her is faster than usual, and within a week or even just first 24 hours, we have a lot of discussions going on about her power level. It's not clear to be honest, but it definitely adds up to the complex case about her current public perception. Just keep in mind we're still talking about her gameplay and not the character design itself, which is hard to resist when she's doing that cute sparkler dance. Either way, while her single target damage output is pretty exciting, she does have her own struggles like any other character, but just the fact there's apathy displayed towards her rival should tell us whether it's the actual power level that people care about, or instead it gets more complicated with things like Raiden Shogun's banner coming up next. Not to mention, it's entirely possible a lot of people simply emptied out their Primogem reserves for Ayaka, and so even those who are average customers, not whales but not free to play either, just don't have the money or enthusiasm to do it. But there is one last thing that's very interesting about her. If we had to put on our tinfoil hats, then one theory that's been going around is that MiHoYo is basically testing the waters with a character that's not completely broken and at the same time doesn't stand out too much in terms of damage in team comps. After all, it's kind of clear already her playstyle is catered to a very specific audience, while the character design itself, well, it really depends what people like about her, but the developers seem to never disappoint in that department either way. It's also kind of important to note that Yoimiya comes from a long line of pyro characters, which we've had an abundant amount of, so not only the element is saturated with options, but there's also the fact players might have already built 1 or 2 or maybe even more pyro units, especially considering that Benny Boy at this point is in his own league of flexibility along with others like Zhongli, Kazuha, and Venti. And let's be honest here, for a single target damage dealer, she's pretty amazing, and the more bosses get released, the more her value grows because while in a nutshell, the timed challenges are stuffed with enemies that are begging for AoE damage, any other room with focused fire and one punching bag standing there is going to regret meeting her. And the reality is, there's plenty of sources you can check for yourself before deciding if you want to get the character, and while it has shown in the past, like with Child and Albedo, where the general perception doesn't fairly represent the actual potential, nowadays it's all about thinking long term. Heck, even if we take a look at someone like Klee, who has had an insanely profitable banner during game's launch, and even a rerun, she actually gets barely more usage inside the Abyss compared to Yoimiya, and we all know how everybody loves the explosive maniac, yet she doesn't get a lot of attention for the most challenging content. Now, naturally, this is quite logical, because if a character cannot work as a proper support, then they will end up getting used less, because there's really just one spot in a team for the main damage dealer, while you can easily pepper the rest of the team with anyone who's able to produce enough particles and do something off-field. So just the fact Yoimiya has come out, and the day data is showing she's frequently used in the Abyss to get 36 stars, and the usage rate is about the same as Cleese, who has been obtained by way more players than the Firework business owner. Well, that should be good enough to consider she's not that relevant. In the end, this is still a gacha game, and we will keep seeing reruns and even more new characters, so if you don't fully feel confident in your choice, or if it's the other way around, you're absolutely content with Yoimiya, and you're having fun with her playstyle, then more power to you. But it was interesting to take a look at her reception, some of the things that influence the divided opinion about her, and the actual power level that she holds in the current meta. Hope you enjoyed the video. Making these videos always takes a while, so getting your support is always appreciated, and if you haven't done already, be sure to subscribe to the channel and also hit that like button gently. Thanks for watching and see you next time.